bringing these what are called thought leaders in to engage with your physicians, whether it was just bringing a doctor in for a lunch or having a dinner program. And, many times, I mean, so often they would talk off label, whether it was for, Wellbutrin for weight loss or for, ADHD, for sexual dysfunction or just children and the whole gamut. I mean, it was just, you would have thought that the drug should have been in the water.
Well, they're trying to do that too. That's don't say that to too many people. They're going to try that.
Right.
They want to put cholesterol drugs in the water supply. That's how crazy they are. But you mentioned Wellbutrin in particular, that the catchphrase that you would repeat to doctors if you only had a minute to talk to them was the quote, happy, horny, skinny drug. And right. Yet there was no data, there was no clinical trial data whatsoever on the treating sexual dysfunction or weight loss at all, right? So that was just a fairy tale.
There may have been some shady trials or some data. They also did this thing called the fax back, where you would engage with your doctor, and of course they would instruct you to, according to our allegations in the complaint, they would instruct you to write, doctor request off-label information on whatever drug, and then you would call an 800 number.
All right, Blair, we got to go to a break here. Okay. Stay with us. We'll continue with you on the other side of this break. Incredible information here from an insider previously with GlaxoSmithKline. Stay with us. We'll be right back with much more straight ahead. All right, thanks for continuing with us here on the Alex Jones Show. Mike Adams, the health ranger, filling in, and we are talking with former Glaxo employee and now whistleblower Blair Hamrick, who is one of the top 2 key people responsible for taking evidence to the Department of Justice that resulted in the $3 billion settlement, the largest in the history of medicine. Wow, incredible. Hey, Blair, let me ask you this. The typical uninformed consumer out there, let's say just a mainstream news watching someone who's not really informed, doesn't, for example, listen to the Alex Jones Show, so that they're not really awakened that much. That kind of person thinks, this is what they believe, and I want you to tell us why this belief is wrong if you think so, but they believe that all the drugs are meticulously tested by upstanding scientists, that it's the gold standard of evidence-based medicine, and that the FDA scrutinizes all of this information and makes sure that drugs are only approved and released to the public after just these huge in-depth studies proving their safety and efficacy, and that the drug companies, they're really out to just help humanity. And in fact, they only kind of make money accidentally. It's not their main intent. They're really just trying to help people. It should be just like a big nonprofit organization is the way they portray themselves. So what's wrong with that view of medicine today?
When they start testing it for approval, according to the FDA, a new drug only needs to show that it's better than placebo, that it works better than placebo. So there's many compounds out there that have been available for years and years and years, that are available generically, that are pennies on the dollar. And these drug companies would never put these products up against those products sometimes head-to-head. They only put it through against placebo, because if it's better than placebo, then they get the approval. And then, whereas if they put it head-to-head against something that is already approved and is cheap and is efficacious and safe, then and they show inferiority to that product, well, then you're taking a drug that may be $8, $9 a pill, and something that may take 3 cents a pill. Yeah, just to rephrase what you're saying, a lot of the new drugs that are hyped up that are expensive, like you say, $8, $9, $10 a pill. Some are even a lot more than that, $50 a pill in some areas. Right. It may be an old, nickel a pill drug actually works better, but they never run the head-to-head test, because that would show that the new drug isn't worth the extra $10. Right. That's correct. And maybe safer. There's many compounds out there. For instance, they've got, Glaxo has a new product called Trexamit, which is a combination of an older product of Imitrex and naproxen. Naproxen, I think it's either
just
naproxen
like a common painkiller, yeah.
Right, and naproxen has been, that drug is like 45 years old, and Imitrex came out in 1991, I think is when that drug was launched. So there you've got a 20-year-old drug and a 40-year-old drug. They mix them together and they call it a new drug.
Well, and then at the same time, you've got the drug companies actively interfering with the generic drug manufacturers trying to bring drugs to market for cheaper prices. I saw, for example, I think AstraZeneca just got slapped by the court for trying to engage in that. Pfizer's being sued under allegations of price fixing and monopolization to prevent a competing generic cholesterol drug from entering the market that would potentially reduce their sales of, I believe, Lipitor. So you've got these drug companies actually working against the interests of consumers. So, why doesn't the FTC get involved in anti-competitive practices with these companies?
I don't know. I can't answer that question. But, what I can say is that for every day that a generic stays off the market, they make tens of millions, perhaps hundreds of millions of dollars a day.
Yeah, they're making money every minute. Stay with us, Blair.
Sure.
Please stay with us. We're going to continue in just a minute with much more from Blair Hamrick. All right, welcome to the third hour. Is it already the third hour of the Alex Jones Show? Wow, time flies when you're telling the truth, doesn't it? We're joined in this segment, continuing with Blair Hamrick, the whistleblower, former employee of GlaxoSmithKline, one of the key informants that went to the U.S. government that then took action and got a $3 billion settlement out of Glaxo. Now, we're going to continue with Blair for this segment and, in fact, for the next half hour, so I hope you can stay with us, Blair. But here's some of the stories we just spoke about. AstraZeneca tries to block generic drug approvals, gets slapped by the court. And there's just another case of pharmaceutical companies trying to interfere with free market practices that would actually benefit consumers. And this is routine. You probably weren't in that area of the company, Blair, but do you have any other knowledge about drug companies blocking generic drugs that would benefit consumers?
Well, if they don't block, they can also do things like manufacture the compound for the generic companies. Many times after the drug is made, it gets the approval generically, and they were unsuccessful. Usually successful at making that time a lot longer. But then when the generic finally comes out, then they'll cut a deal with the generic house to manufacture either the raw compound for them to press it into a pill, or maybe even manufacture it themselves. Sometimes sometimes they'll have two lines running at the same time, the exact same pill on each line. One's going in a generic bottle, one's going in a brand name bottle. So I mean, there's a lot of malfeasance going on here.
Well, I mean, there's nothing, let's say, technically illegal about having a generic line, but where I have issues is where are these drugs manufactured? Because I remember reading a lot of stories talking about manufacturing facilities, for example, in Puerto Rico and in India, where they would find machine parts in the pills, and they would find specks of paint from the machines.
Well, Cheryl Eckert was the whistleblower in another Glaxo case about a year ago, where she was reporting malfeasance going on in Puerto Rico, where the drugs were mislabeled. I mean, all kinds of things, and even having the reports written to North Carolina in Spanish, so that the people at the main office couldn't read the reports. So, I mean, unfortunately, Cheryl, because I was in sales, I'm a pretty good communicator, where Cheryl was on 60 Minutes, and she, her specialty was something else. And so she wasn't a communicator, and so she was dismissed very quickly.
Really?
But her story is significant in itself, and so what these companies are doing, it's a very filthy business. And like I said to you in our last interview, I mean, what are they? They're a corporate defendant, and what's a corporate defendant? It's nothing but a table full of attorneys, justifying behaviors, making it up. I mean, when they can't justify a behavior, they just make a story up.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that in more detail. This segment is not carried by all of the radio affiliates, so when we get into the next segment, I want to ask you about CEOs being held criminally responsible, which hasn't happened yet, but I believe that should happen, and I want to get your views on that, Blair.
Sure.
How come these companies can simply admit to felony crimes, admit to fraud, admit to violating federal law, pay a fine, get away with it, nobody gets arrested, nobody goes to jail, nobody goes to prison, and they just keep doing it over and over again. In this case, for example, Glaxo paid its $3 billion fine out of, quote, cash reserves. Right. Yeah, this company's so big, they have $3 billion sitting around. Can you imagine
that sitting around?
Hey, is there $3 billion under this table anywhere? They just pull it out, pay it to the government, and keep doing business. It's incredible. But stay with us, Blair. We got to go to a quick break, and then we'll be right back on the other side with more insider details. Continuing our interview with Blair Hamrick, the insider with GlaxoSmithKline. Thank you for joining us, continuing with us on the third hour of the Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, the editor of naturalnews.com, filling in. And if you want to find some documents related to this story, they're on the front page of naturalnews.com right now, by the way, a PDF that you can check out some of the court documents. I also want to apologize to the callers. We need to clear the board of callers that are in the queue right now, please, guys. And I want to invite new callers to come in to ask questions about medicine or the pharmaceuticals in particular, as we have Blair Hamrick on as a guest. And then, again, I apologize to the callers who are on the board about the gun confiscation issue, but maybe we'll bring that up later in the show. Again, get back to that. The number is 1-800-259-9231. So go ahead and call in if you've got questions or comments about Big Pharma in general. Just remember, Blair can't answer your health questions, and I cannot either. We're not doctors, so please don't ask us health questions. But Blair, getting back to you, we spoke about the importance of having some corporate responsibility for these kinds of actions. Why is it that nobody's going to jail? You know, nobody's being arrested. The CEO of Glaxo is not being investigated or prosecuted for these crimes that his company has admitted to committing. Why is that? How does that make you feel, man?
Well, I mean, it's the veil of the corporation. I mean, you know, a corporation is basically a sociopath, and they have so many veils of protection that you know, and so many attorneys, you know, nobody's going to face the music. And, you know, unfortunately, maybe somebody in the UK will wake up. I mean, I've already heard that some prime ministers in the UK are calling for an investigation of Glaxo to see if they really have changed like they say they have. And, you know, quite frankly, if they are a changed company, then why doesn't Glaxo HR give me a call and try to hire me back in their compliance department? I'd gladly go back to work for them in their compliance department.
Oh, yeah, I bet they would love that. You in their compliance department.
Yeah.
But hey, who knows? Maybe that's some way they could actually show that they're serious about reforms. But here's something interesting. In the natural products industry, if let's say a provider of cherry supplements is investigated by the FTC for what is essentially the same as off-label marketing or making invalid marketing claims, the FTC will often go in and seize all their inventory, shut down their entire company, seize the entire customer